Al-Shabaab strikes again, detonating a deadly car bomb in the Somali capital. We'll tell you who was targeted. How DNA samples are helping in the fight against the illegal ivory trade. And how a hot fashion trend could be hazardous to your health. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Al-Shabaab is claiming responsibility for a car bombing attack that killed at least 3 people in Somalia on Wednesday. The explosion in Mogadishu targeted a convoy carrying military trainers from the United Arab Emirates, but police say the Emirati officials were not harmed. A Somali military official says those killed were Somali soldiers. The bomb reduced a vehicle to a smoldering pile of twisted metal. 7 other people were wounded in the blast. In the past, the terrorist group has exaggerated the number of government members it has killed, while officials have played down losses. On Sunday, Al-Shabaab fighters detonated a car bomb in the capital and shot their way into a national intelligence agency training site. Well, the debate over the radicalization of young Muslims has been ignited in Britain following several high-profile cases of British citizens traveling to fight with Islamic militants. It follows the revelation earlier this year that Jihad John, the masked Islamic State fighter seen in many propaganda videos, is a British citizen. Henry Ridgwell reports on the heated debate over how to counter such extremism.
3 sisters and their 9 children from northern Britain are believed to be living in Syrian territory controlled by the so-called Islamic State. The families went missing on their way back from a pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia this month, stopping en route in Istanbul, from where it is thought they made their way to Syria. The husbands and fathers pleaded for them to return.
They're young kids, 7 and 5. And you know, I love you so much.
3 British schoolgirls joined Islamic State in February. Earlier this month, a 17-year-old boy from northern England died in a suicide attack in Iraq. Days later, a white British Muslim convert, Thomas Evans, was killed fighting for Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Speaking at a security conference last week, Prime Minister David Cameron said Britain's Muslim community must do more to counter radical views.
There are people who hold some of these views, who don't go as far as advocating violence, but who do buy into some of these prejudices, giving the extreme Islamist narrative weight and telling fellow Muslims, you are part of this. This paves the way for young people to turn simmering prejudice into murderous intent.
But radicalization expert Joanna Cook says that is the wrong approach.
By viewing the Muslim community as one single unified unit like this, you really do not understand the diversity of the community. And by a sweeping broad analysis like this, you also risk alienating the law-abiding peaceful citizens that are going to be your biggest allies.
Cook says authorities should instead engage more deeply with Muslim communities.
Nobody wants to see their child go abroad or fall victim to radicalization or become radicalized. So this is very important for a lot of people in these communities, and it's very important to have strong, positive relations between security actors and communities.
The EU law enforcement agency Europol created a unit to take down social media accounts promoting the group. An important but belated step, says author Abdel Barry Atwan.
They have, thousands and thousands of accounts on the Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Atwan says militants use the accounts to recruit.
Social media is a God gift to the Islamic State. Why? It is free, it is accessible, and it is very, very influential. So if you compare the Islamic State with Osama bin Laden, for example, Osama bin Laden used to rely completely on Al Jazeera in order to broadcast his videotape, and they used to edit a lot of it.
Islamic State's latest gruesome propaganda video shows the execution of 12 alleged spies. VOA is not broadcasting the images. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Well, in Burundi, campaigns for legislative and presidential elections are ongoing in an atmosphere of tension. Political crisis triggered by President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a third term remains unresolved. Efforts by the new United Nations facilitator of talks between rival factions have hit a snag. VOA's Edward Reimer reports from Bujumbura.
The government and the ruling party delegations were absent as talks to end the political crisis in Burundi resumed. The talks, facilitated by United Nations and African Union envoys in the country, were supposed to bring together the government, political parties and civil society. In a statement, the ruling party, CNDD-FDD, said they were preoccupied with the election campaign and had no time of participating in the political dialogue. The talks were supposed to be the first facilitated by new United Nations envoy to Burundi, Abdoulaye Bathil, following the resignation of Said Djinnit after the opposition complained of his abilities to facilitate the talks. Leading opposition leader Agathon Rwasa said they were all surprised that the government was absent.
There is a need of people to deal with this situation, and nobody has the right to be absent, because we agreed from the Arusha period that any time that there will be some questions arising in our society, we should find a way out through a dialogue.
The ensuing political crisis in Burundi began when President Pierre Nkurunziza decided in April to seek a third term in office. That was followed by violent clashes between protesters and police, mainly in the capital Bujumbura, that have left more than 70 people dead, according to Burundi's civil society groups. Leading human rights defender Pierre Clever Mbonipa told reporters that he hoped the new envoy will force President Nkurunziza to reconsider his decision to run and change the electoral dates because they were not agreed upon through a consensus. According to Agathon Rwasa, the political solution in Burundi can only be found through political dialogue.
This unilateralism of the government side is not a solution to the problem. It isn't even a part of the solution to the problem. The solution can only be generated by a true dialogue. And I think that the message from the African Union, when they were in that summit in Johannesburg, the way the United Nations appointed a new representative is just a sign and even a message toward the government side that unilateralism is not a solution, that we are obliged to dialogue as Burundians and find out a consensus on how we move forward.
The African Union and the European Union have all called for a postponement of Burundi's July 15 presidential elections, saying a new date should be decided through negotiations between the government and the opposition.
Well, viewers, Edward Reimer reporting from Bujumbura. Now, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, how new tracking methods are helping in the fight against ivory poaching. Stay with us.
The Jackson family produced a pool of talent, as in Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Jermaine Jackson, and so on. But the Jacksons aren't the only family with more than one star hanging from their tree. Comedy actress Melissa McCarthy, currently starring in the movie Spy, happens to be related to TV host and former Playboy playmate Jenny McCarthy. They're first cousins. NBC's Al Roker is America's best-known weatherman. So what's the forecast for his surprise relation? Very cool. It's musician and Hunger Games star Lenny Kravitz. Roka confirms their grandfathers were cousins. Legendary producer Quincy Jones has worked with some of pop music's best-known stars, including Frank Sinatra and Michael Jackson. Daughter Rashida Jones has also made quite the name for herself in hit TV shows like The Office and Parks and Recreation, and movies such as The Social Network and I Love You Man. For VOA's Action Reaction, I'm Lisa Vora.
Wherever you are, Voice of America is on air, reaching more than 130 million weekly, worldwide, in more than 40 languages. Online, social media, and breaking news from around the world. On the go, dozens of new features on popular platforms with new apps and trending topics. Voice of America. On air, online, on the go.
Welcome back. Now, the illegal trade of wild animals is now the world's fourth largest international crime. Many of the animals are killed only for their highly sought-after parts. For rhinos, it's their horns, and for elephants, it's their ivory tusks. A scientist at the University of Washington in Seattle has developed a new method for tracking where seized elephant tusks originated. VOA's George Puttich has more.
Vast expanses and undeveloped infrastructure in the African countryside make monitoring and fighting the illegal trade in elephant tusks very difficult. In 2011, authorities seized 41 tons of tusks, while in 2013, that number rose to 51 tons. The estimated number of elephants killed rose from 40,000 to more than 50,000. Intercepted ivory is routinely destroyed, but other shipments are never detected. So one of the most important tools for fighting the crime is precise mapping of the poaching hotspots and trade routes. University of Washington researcher Samuel Wasser pioneered a new way to monitor wildlife over large areas by collecting their DNA samples. He spoke via Skype.
We get DNA from elephant dung, their feces, because it's very accessible, as well as tissue or hair when we can, but mainly our DNA comes from the dung.
Wasser and his team collected DNA from 1,500 individual elephants and from unique family groups, which gave them a nice continuous distribution of elephants across the continent.
Once we had that, and we had a software that allowed us to be able to show the differences that this yielded between populations, then it was simply a matter of getting the DNA from the ivory, from the seizures, and matching it to that gene frequency map.
Wasser says they were surprised to find out that almost 100% of the ivory poached over the last decade came from just two places: a triangle covering parts of Gabon, Republic of Congo, Cameroon, and Central African Republic, and the biggest one in southern Tanzania and northern Mozambique. He says the situation is becoming critical.
So if we don't do something soon, we are going to lose elephants over most of Africa, and this is going to cause irreversible ecological damage.
Wasser says his lab is working closely with both U.S. law enforcement agencies and Interpol in turning all the collected results into a law enforcement action. George Puttich, VOA News, Washington.
Well, students at the first ever university in French-speaking West Africa are struggling to find a place to sleep. Africa 54's Mel Bailey tells us more.
At University Cheikh Anta Diop in Dakar, students can be found sleeping in hallways and up to 3 to a bed, not because they're pulling all-night study sessions, but because the university has run out of housing. Fambita Ndai, a student housing delegate, talks about the housing crunch.
Student housing on campus isn't very plentiful, and here at University Cheikh Anta Diop, there are 80,000 students. We don't lodge any more than 32,000 students at the university. You see, there is a large difference between the students who have housing and those who do not.
Student housing is rationed based on top notes. Incoming freshmen with high scores from the baccalaureate are considered first, then higher-level students ranking in the top 3% of their class are given the remainder of the good note beds. Student delegates representing each subject major are given lists with up to 10 beds to give to fellow students. A large percentage of students are then left with nowhere to go and nowhere to sleep.
We can't house everyone because, as you know, and everyone is aware, the demand is much greater than what we can supply. At the level of the University of Dakar, we assist in a saturation of the admitted population of students.
Ndai says her goal as student housing delegate is to protect the female students.
Female students are more susceptible to being hurt in this situation. They are very sensitive. They are taken advantage of by some students who propose that they perform sexual acts to be able to sleep in their rooms, or who ask for money so they can give them their beds.
Some student associations have taken it upon themselves to find off-campus housing. Cher Faye, the Cheswa student coordinator, says although it's more expensive, off-campus housing has become a necessity.
We, the students of Chess, we have set a new record in attendance. We have 14,000 students on campus. And seriously, the campus is not equipped to house all these students. So we found housing outside of campus. At this level, we currently have 7 apartments of campus where we lodge students from Chess.
The campus activities for the University of Dakar says that the problem is extreme and the only solution is more universities.
Well, as you know, COO has made sufficient efforts to respond to the never-ceasing demand of student housing. But I think that we have arrived at a level of saturation where we think the best thing to do is decongest the university. That's why the President of the Republic has made the very welcome decision to open another university in Dakar and another in Kaolack. Each university will have an admissions capacity of 30,000 students, which will inevitably participate in the decongestion of this university.
The university is expected to open an additional dormitory by the summer of 2015. This will add an additional 1,000 plus beds for university students. But as for now, students are doing what they can to live and study for a better tomorrow. This is Mel Bailey for Africa 54, Dakar, Senegal.
Well, a lawyer who represents victims at the International Forum for Truth and Justice in the African Great Lakes says Karenzi Karache, Rwanda's intelligence chief, should be tried in Spain after he was arrested in Britain at Spain's request. Jody Polu says Karache should not be allowed impunity for his alleged crimes. Now, for more perspective on the implications of the arrest, I'm joined on the phone by Christopher Kayumba, political commentator and journalism lecturer at the University of Rwanda. Good evening, Mr. Kayumba.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, now we know that the reaction from the Rwandan authorities was that this was an outrageous act by Britain and Spain. Why is it described?
They are calling it outrageous for 3 main reasons. One is they think that the arrest warrants used to arrest Lieutenant General Karenzi Karachi are time-barred. They were issued in 2008, yet the law that they were based on being issued was changed by the Spanish Parliament in 2009. Secondly, they are saying that it is politically motivated because even those indictments they were based on a poorly written legal dossier that has no basis. And finally, that since Rwanda has been having very good relations with Britain, it is quite surprising that they can decide to implement this arrest warrant that has been around for a number of years. Yeah. And General Karenzi Karachi has been going to United Kingdom and other European countries. He has not been arrested in the past, and they decide to arrest him now.
Now, there's a question people keep asking. These charges, they're mentioning genocide, war crimes. Do they make sense? I mean, did this officer and other officials really commit genocide, or what should be the appropriate charges here?
For me, I have been reading the dossier, the legal document on which those arrest warrants for General Karenzi and 39 others were based on, because in total the Spanish judge has indicted 40 people. I think the former U.S. ambassador to Rwanda wrote a document to State Department in 2009, saying that the dossier on which the arrest warrants were based on, is poorly written, is not based on facts, and that it has very little to do with what happened in 1994. And therefore, based on what the former U.S. That document was leaked by WikiLeaks in 2009, and you can check it online. So based on what the former U.S. ambassador wrote, you are asking, is it true that these 40 people indicted, including General Karenzi now arrested in UK, did they commit the genocide? The answer is no, because the 40 people that were indicted, including General Karenzi Karachi, they were members of the Rwandese Patriotic Army, that is now the UPDF, the army that actually stopped the genocide. So
exactly.
They cannot be... they cannot have stopped the genocide and at the same time commit genocide.
Okay, thank you. And actually, that is what is so kind of disturbing to many people. Mr. Kayumba, thanks a lot for your insight. Christopher Kayumba is a political commentator and journalism lecturer at the University of Rwanda. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Beware, this hot fashion trend could be a health hazard. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Nigeria, dual suicide attacks in Wagir and Maiduguri kill at least 30 people at a market and bus station, with both attacks likely to be blamed on Boko Haram. In Kenya, a fire destroys large sections of Gikomba second-hand clothing market, one of Africa's biggest in Nairobi. In Burundi, the ruling party announces its boycott of the restart of UN-led talks, hoped to broker peace between rival parties following weeks of violence. Finally, in Ethiopia, with targets to slash carbon emissions, the country inaugurates the largest wind farm in sub-Saharan Africa. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Skinny jeans are a hot fashion statement, but are they also a health risk? Well, doctors in Australia say that a 35-year-old woman was hospitalized for 4 days after experiencing muscle damage, swelling, and nerve blockages in her legs after squatting for several hours while wearing tight-fitting denims. Now, the patient spent most of the previous day helping someone move, squatting for long periods while emptying cupboards clad in skinny jeans. The woman says they felt increasingly tight and her feet were numb as she walked home, making her trip on 4. The woman was treated after having to get her jeans cut off. Well, next up, streaming giant Hulu has recreated Jerry Seinfeld's apartment ahead of the comedian's popular sitcom's release on June the 26th. Starting the same day, Seinfeld fans can walk through Jerry's door to see a real-life model of the New York City apartment. Seinfeld, the apartment, will include multiple interactive elements, letting fans engage in key moments from the series, including George Constance's Valentine's Day photo shoot and Cosmo Kramer's famous barge-in entrance. Well, and finally, sources close to Sean Diddy Combs says the rapper was simply defending his son when he reportedly swung a kettlebell during an altercation at USLA's earlier this week. Diddy allegedly took a swing at USLA's strength and training coach, who Diddy thought was overly criticizing his son, Justin, during conditioning exercises. Justin is a defense back for the school's football team. Diddy was arrested and taken into custody by USLA campus police on suspicion of felony assault. Police later updated the charges to 3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count each of making terrorist threats and battery. The music and fashion mogul was released from custody late Monday night after posting bond. His first court appearance is scheduled for July the 13th, and that is what is trending today. Now, the Kakuma refugee camp in northeastern Kenya is home for thousands of refugees fleeing conflict in their homeland since 1992. Many were born and raised in the camp, but in spite of the many challenges they face, they have found innovative ways to bring joy to their everyday lives. Africa 54's Esther Githu-Ewart tells us more.
Dressed in school uniform, boys and girls sang and marched through the dry, dusty compound to celebrate the World Refugee Day Saturday, while visiting UNHCR representative to Kenya, Rauf Mazu, called for more efforts to help the refugees achieve their dreams.
Refugees who are here in Kenya, and some of whom have been in Kenya for a long period of time, we are about durable solution. We are about trying to make sure that refugees can live normally.
The Kakuma refugee camp hosts refugees mainly from neighboring countries fleeing conflict. Some of them are from South Sudan and have come up with creative ways to make life bearable and enjoyable. Among the various artists in the camp is James Okito, a South Sudanese refugee who was forcibly displaced with his family at the age of 2. He uses a computer to draw.
Art and craft is something I've been inspired to do. You find guys drawing things, you even try to imagine something, you try to make it in a paper, try to come it in a way such that I've seen that most interesting and even pleasuring. So you enjoy it. It's something that comes from your heart.
Now at 19, Okito hopes his graphic art talent can be fully realized and even secure him a job in the future. Activists from all over the world are trying to help refugees, especially those who decide to remain in Kenya, to turn their talent into sustainable livelihood.
Like photoshopping is something very interesting, and it's something very professional. Like I've learned from our teachers, they have been doing them in Nairobi there. So they do for maybe advertisements. So they print for presidents. So something very, they get salary. So they earn from it.
A refugee coordinator, Mr. Dula, hopes this newfound love of art can be sustained and even earn the refugees a living.
I want to grow a very strong art community that is able to sustain itself, give these guys a sustainable way of earning a living, and in the same way offer them hope that even though they're in the camps, they're able to do something meaningful with their talent.
And as the world rallies together in aid of the refugees, there is a call to governments to create peace for their citizenry, and one can only hope the sorry state of refugees worldwide will be a thing of the past. Esther Githu-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings, to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Music is something that brings people together.
Music educates, it motivates, it's a bridge.
Music. Ali.
On
VOA.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international calling talk show, Straight Talk Africa. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent.